before I bring my knee.
This week's lesson occurs after Jesus makes his triumphant entrance into Jerusalem, with the crowds cheering and celebrating his arrival. Once in Jerusalem, he enters into the temple. The temple is the center of Jewish religious and political life. Jesus clears the temple of the merchants that were cheating the people, and then Jesus turns his attention to the abusive religious leaders.
He said to the crowds and to his disciples,
"The teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must obey them and do everything they tell you. But do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy loads and put them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Everything they do is done for men to see. They make their phylacteries wide and the tassels on their garments long. They love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted in the marketplaces and to have men call them rabbi. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have only one master, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth father, for you have one Father, and he is in heaven. Nor are you to be called teachers, for you have one teacher, the Christ. The greatest among you will be your servant, for whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted."
Every season.
The Pharisees were very influential men in Jewish religious life during the time of Jesus' ministry. The scribes were trained in writing and were very influential as interpreters and teachers of the religious law. So in Matthew, when this carpenter turned preacher enters into Jerusalem on a donkey and then disrupts the temple traders, speaks to the Pharisees and scribes harshly, he is treading dangerously. In this part of the lesson, Jesus is speaking truth to power. Speaking truth to power is likely the oldest and certainly one of the most difficult moral and ethical challenges for Christians because it involves personal cost and danger. Telling those with authority the truth can have consequences that hurt. Telling the truth to those who you have a relationship with who can emotionally hurt you also can have consequences. It was Herbert Agar, the writer of A Time for Greatness, who wrote, "The truth that makes men free is, for the most part, the truth which men prefer not to hear." Jesus, the example for modern truth tellers, spoke the truth to those in power in the face of danger. Pharisees and scribes were hypocrites. My grandmother would say they were putting on airs because they were appearing to be what they really were not. They acted pious and in compliance with the law for public display, but inside they were dirty, they were corrupt, even cheating the very widows they were supposed to protect. Their actions were to glorify themselves for the public's eyes and not glorify God. In essence, they were self-centered or selfish. Jesus regularly taught about the inside of a man rather than the outside. He cautions us about the trappings of privilege and title, for those honors will sometimes cause Christians to lose humility. The widow in Mark quietly gave all she had. She did not seek the eyes of the public. She had only 2 coins. Her sacrifice was to glorify God and support the work of the temple, not for public recognition. In essence, she was selfless. By giving the 2 coins that she had, she showed concern for other people or for the temple and little concern for herself.
There are certainly easier ways to hear a heartbeat than over the roar of Interstate 376 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Certainly more profitable specialties than street medicine.
We can then work something out until we can get the insurance stuff straightened out.
Still, since 1992, Dr. Jim Withers has been caring exclusively for the city's homeless.
Hi, Dr. Withers.
Night after
How you
night,
been?
he and his team make their rounds at homeless camps. They treat everything, head to toe, from mental illness to frostbitten feet.
Take one of these at night
What little Dr. Withers makes comes mostly from grants and teaching at a medical school. But he doesn't think about money. In fact, this guy doesn't think at all like a typical doctor.
The essence of healthcare is going to where people are, either physically or, even more importantly, spiritually, emotionally. Anything else you need tonight?
Just a hug.
When they're shown that they matter, when that really sinks in, then hope grows and amazing things happen. How are you? And that's why we've been able to house well over 700 people.
House?
House.
Doctors don't put people in houses.
You know, if I could, I'd write a prescription for a house for, all the street people, because it is immensely important for health.
This is 49-year-old Jim Ellis. He was on the streets for 8 years until he met Dr. Withers, who first treated his back pain and then helped cure his homelessness.
6, 7,
Through a nonprofit Dr. Withers started called Operation Safety Net, he and his staff have been remarkably successful at finding apartments for people like Jim. Jim pays what he can for rent. House calls are still free.
as clean as your apartment.
But here's the most amazing part of this whole story. Over the years, Operation Safety Net has been able to help so many that today homelessness in Pittsburgh is literally half the problem it used to be. Half as many people on the streets. About a dozen cities in America are now trying to copy the program.
Tell me, is this an example of modern-day selflessness? I'd like to hear your comments. Please share this link. Hope you had a Merry Christmas, and we're praying that you have a safe and prosperous New Year. Thanks for listening. Bye.